Good morning, Donna. You are on. You are good. I am struggling with the link this morning, as you can see. I have no idea why it's different today, and I've done all the same things. I'm just going to give it a second to see if everybody finds. I just reposted. Good job, Linda. Great job. Super confusing. Nothing changed. But something changed. God, I hate the computer so much. Yep. I see you. Hopefully you see me, and hopefully all the buddies. I could see everybody was talking, but I couldn't open that link in terms of like myself joining. So I could see that you all were having a party, and I was kind of stuck. Carol, Chrissy, Cindy, everybody's popping on. Great job. You all are so good and flexible. You're so much better than I am with this computer thing. Heather, great. Lots of internet issues. Maybe that was it. Martha, great to see you. Happy coffee time. Lori, happy coffee time in Texas. Elaine, thank you for coming on. Rug Money review time. Rob, it's such a good book. Robin, great to see you. Sheila, great to see you. Karen, great to see you. I am so pleased. You all are so good. I mean, it's just like amazing to me. Beverly, great to see you. I don't know what happened. I'm going to have to fix it later with the picture that I have for the Rug Money book because I had a beautiful thing set up. And you know what? I'm not going to start, but I set it all up yesterday because I thought, let me be on top of this. Let me get the link ready. And doing it the day before and being on top of it meant like it just wasn't there and I couldn't open it. I could see it, but I couldn't get in it. So maybe the lesson to the story is don't be too proactive. Being lazy is kind of okay. Maybe that's the moral here. Amber, good morning. Linda, good morning. Good to see everybody. I'm so glad. I hope everybody made their way back over. That was super stressful. I'm trying not to get stressed about things like that because I guess like small problem, big world kind of thing. But it is super stressful when I don't understand what's going on and there's nobody here to help me. So I'm by myself. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for catching up to me. We are going to do this. I'm going to run over, of course. You got to go to the Outlet yesterday. You got tons of T-shirts to cut up. Robin, that is great. Robin, are you New Jersey? I should remember, and I don't. Heather, good morning. Cynthia, good morning. Everybody made it back over. That's great. I think everybody did. I'm not sure my mom was on, but she hasn't made it back yet. Robin, it's so good. You know, these Goodwill outlets are in most states, not every state. And they can be super sketchy. I'm not gonna lie. They can be super sketchy. People can be very aggressive. But at the end of the day, this is an extra mask up kind of place. Extra because they're bringing huge bins out into this sort of open factory type warehouse space, bringing bins out back and forth, and everybody's descending like buzzards on a poop truck and touching. So it's a place you want to be super, super, super careful. But if you are okay, some are better than others. Ours here in Hamden, Connecticut is okay, just okay, sometimes sketchy. But if you are lucky enough to have one near you and you are good, Wisconsin, okay. So I'm sure it's probably super nice and normal out there. Ours is a bit like metropolitan in feel, and people are coming from New York City, and people are driving 4 hours to get to the one that's in the town where I live. That's how cheap it is. But if you do have one near you, when you go to regular Goodwill or a charity store, I went to a regular one this weekend. A tie-dye T-shirt was $4.99. Like, I'm sorry, but it's a used tie-dye T-shirt without a brand in it. The brand was Hanes, right? So it's kind of like, wow, that's on the high side, right? So, oh, good, everybody's popping on now. That's great. Good, good, good. It was an adventure, right? I mean, it's a very different place. You have to be able to deal with it. Even people who love sort of thrifting, searching, love the hunt, love the yard sale, have a hard time with the outlet sometimes because it's just a lot. If you can picture sort of the old days, Filene's basement kind of mayhem, it can be just like that. So, but it's great to go because they weigh everything by the pound, and then if you hit, for example, 5 pounds and then 10 pounds, the price goes down, and then you end up getting literally a shopping cart full of T-shirts. And okay, you spent $50, but you have 150 T-shirts, something like that. So don't quote me on that, but it's become super cheap when you load up. So it can be really fun for our crafting purposes. Other people are not picking up like T-shirts unless they're Def Leppard concert T-shirts from 1980. but and they're not picking up wool with in skirts and tops and blazers with holes and stuff in them or with any kind of damage. And of course, we can avoid the little holes and use the rest of the thing. Take out the beautiful linings, dye with those too. So these places are great for hookers. You get a really good deal if it's near you and if you can handle it. Elaine says, my daughter took me to one in Fort Worth, Texas. It was super interesting and crazy. Yeah, it can be. It depends on the day too. The weekend is never a good time to go to these places because that's when people are really making day trips up. But we persevere. Oh, thank you, Linda. I'm so glad. I'm so glad. Well, that is so funny to hear, Robin. I'm so glad that you took off and went because it's an adventure and an experience and it's exciting. And when you're using about on average 30 to 60 t-shirts for a rug, depending on the size, more for a large rug, you really don't want to spend like $4.99 a t-shirt. So it's good to get around these things. It's good to be sneaky and find your way around. So rug money. First of all, let me just tell you, I don't know about you, and I missed this on the first thread because I was sweating it out. The weather here is unbelievable. It is like a summer day. It is like almost 50 degrees in Connecticut, and it is sunny. It is beautiful. I just had to fight to not drive my car in the direction of Cape Cod, to just lay on a sand dune this afternoon, staring at the P-Town Monument, the Pilgrim Monument, with all those lobster boats in between, and thinking about my next cup of chowder, that kind of thing. It just feels like summer all of a sudden. I hope that you have the same thing where you are because it just lifts your spirits so much. We have gone through the year together at this point. We have gone through the seasons. We loved the fall. We did all our crazy sweater kits and we had tons of projects going on and we really attacked the winter this winter. Don't you think we did? We had so many projects going on collectively. We've done so many games. We've done so much stuff. We pushed through. And we might now be standing on the threshold of another season. We might be looking at spring, and it will be such a relief and so nice to be there, to be on that threshold again. The daffodils are so confused, I bet. I wonder if they're having the Daffodil Festival on Nantucket this year. Probably not. But the daffodils are having the festival. It's just the people probably are not. Donna. No, Donna, it was my technical issue. Great to see you, Donna. It was my technical issue. I could not get into that link. I could see you all commenting, and I could comment. My camera would not go on, and I couldn't get into my normal program. So Mom, you're there. There you are. Yeah, I had a thing, Mom. I had a thing. You know how I get. My hands got sweaty, and my hairline got sweaty, and shot up my back, electricity and panic. But I persevered, as Linda said, and I just steadily, while my hands were shaking, put in another one, and we all got there. So welcome. So t-shirts. Robin was just saying that she made it to one of the Goodwill outlets in the one in Wisconsin for t-shirts. And t-shirt time it is because we're talking about the book Rug Money, and we're probably going to go 15 minutes over the hour. So I was working on my bag of t-shirts, Jocelyn's old dresses that she grew out of. I wanted to use just those. And of course, things she inherited from Teddy, like his tie-dyes that she also wore. So those are fair game too. And I was working on my own t-shirt thing. I'm going to show you again before we look at the rug because I'm just making the point. It is so fun to hook with t-shirts. We looked at Judy Taylor's book last week about hooking with t-shirts, the how-to. Now we're going to look at how the Maya women of Guatemala hook with t-shirts. The light's not good on this, but it's got a lot of bling, some of these things on top here. I haven't done any further work on it, but I really love it. And I will be putting this pattern up. This is the pattern that I did for this t-shirt thing because I know at least you want it, Mom. So I'll do that later. This whole hooking with t-shirt thing is a game changer. And for me, massive, exciting Watership Down caliber rabbit hole. Unbelievable. I got so emotional and crazy reading this book last night because it just, so many aspects of it. The lives of these women in this book, they sort of highlight the original women who took the first classes, there's been quite a few classes since the sort of inception of this program. It's very like the programs that we've talked about in Canada in the early 20th century, the sort of Grenfell mission, the Chetty Camp group of people who were working, making, selling rugs. People were organizing them, and we're not going to start that again right now, but we've covered that, and we're going to return to it certainly someday. This is the same sort of principle, and it's happening in Guatemala, and it's current. So this is something that you could look into if you are up for an adventure. this is like the highlands of Guatemala. So they are kind of on a lake, in a lake district, but up in the highlands. And it just looks beautiful. I have to admit, I've always been very into my American history, powerful, powerful, but also very sort of Eurocentric because I was born over there and I've lived in so many European places. I never think about other places. And this really made me think about going to a part of the world that I have just never thought about, just never thought about. Because I'm not such an outdoor person. I'm more of a cafe in Paris, have a drink and a croque madame kind of a person. But this could change things. This really is a game changer in so many ways. How wide do you cut your t-shirt strips for hooking? Hey, Joelle. Elaine, I was doing them about, I would say if I was cutting them on a machine, which I wasn't, I was cutting them with scissors, but I would say they were probably something like a 9, 8, 9. But Judy Taylor, who literally wrote the book, said hers were like twice as wide. And I did cut some that were a bit wider, more like a half inch to 3/4 of an inch, because as you hook, the ends turn under. So cutting them wider is great. But like you said yesterday, Elaine, you just want to be careful about your backing because if you've got them wide, they're going to make nice, puffy, sort of silken balloons. In a balloon, when you do the balloon game or whatever, if you see an air balloon come down and the silk kind of implodes on itself and makes this beautiful billow. That's what each loop will look like when you've got a real wide loop. And it's beautiful and you cover space fast, but you just want to be careful that you don't have one of those really tight backings like rugwarp or monk's cloth. If you don't, if you're doing something on linen or a variation, burlap, any variation of burlap, you can go much wider and you'll cover much more ground. You're going to end up with much wider pieces with kind of a little twist on both sides. It's a different look and it looks beautiful. I think probably what they're doing in here is probably something like half-inch strips by the look of it. Now, okay, Beverly says she uses 3/8 of an inch. I think it's going to be different from person to person. Carol says a half an inch to 3/4 of an inch. You can pull it out and it curls. I would just experiment with it. Just do a sampler, run a couple, like do 5 different cuts. Of course, different cuts for different areas too. But I would just run a few through and say, this works the best for me. My hook, my backing, the way that I like it to look and to sit. I think it'll be different for each person. But there's so much wiggle room. That's the thing about hooking with t-shirts. There's so much wiggle room. So much fun. So the book that I'm working with today is called Rug Money: How a Group of Maya Women Changed Their Lives Through Art and Innovation. And of course, part of this story is going to be this super uplifting story about this group of women who seem to be just an average cross section of women. But reading their various biographies within the book, just a couple pages for each girl or woman, they have had hard lives, like really hard lives. Like it makes me think everything that I consider a problem is a serious first world stupidity problem on my part because these people have truly had an uphill battle. So this is by Mary Ann Wise and Cheryl Conway-Daly. Now, I had this up in the link to the original show today, and I'm going to have to put it back up because now that link is dead. So I'll fix that later. This book is about this sort of mission. The author of this book, Mary Ann Wise and Cheryl Conway-Daly, and then there's more people who get involved as the thing goes on with future workshops and things. Their idea was to go to this community. They're both weavers and hookers, so they both have like a real strong, very capable textile background. And their idea was to go to this area where women already had a bit of a head start because they are like prolific weavers. If you think about Guatemalan textile, it's very fine, it's all woven, it's very, very, very good, very high quality, but the market is seriously oversaturated. So people are not able to make a living doing this like they once were. It's a huge economic and social problem. So no work, it's a big problem, right? You can't feed your families. This is like the ultimate kind of a problem. So these women went there with the intention of teaching these ladies another skill. Already weavers, but teaching them how to hook. And speaking of the Goodwill outlet, it's good to know that the outlets, what Goodwill typically does, as far as I can understand in terms of their company structure, is they try to sell stuff at the regular Goodwill stores. It's a little bit more expensive. If it doesn't sell, it typically gets moved to the Goodwill outlet. Sometimes things go straight there. It depends on geography. But things will move to the Goodwill outlet. And if things don't sell at the Goodwill outlet, they bag them and send them abroad. And this will be one of the places that they send abroad to. So you end up getting markets with all of these bags and bags and bags of, for example, t-shirts from the US. And then these women will go to the local markets and they can actually afford to buy supplies to make rugs. So this is a very viable option for people who have a very limited set of choices in their lives. The Wool Diva backstrap weaving is what most of the Guat ladies do. So Mary Ann and Cheryl wanted to get them off the floor. Yeah. So that makes a lot of sense, and it's a great thought because again, when you already have a background with textiles, you have something of a head start. So this book just talks about how this whole thing started. The beginning of it talks about how the whole thing got started. And you know how, particularly Mary Ann, who was teaching, immediately had to change her teaching model from what she would do if she were in the U.S. teaching. So immediately she understood, we'll talk about that in better detail, she understood that teaching like it was, you know, a rug hooking store or a rug hooking retreat was not going to work, that she had to think on her feet, like really think on her feet, change as she went, reinterpret and rethink as she went, just to make it work for these ladies, because they're coming out of a totally different place in terms of like capability, mindset, everything. So I'm just going to read a little bit from the introduction because I think it's a beautiful introduction. Sheila says, does the Rug Money book tell you what the ladies used for backing? It looks like they're using monk's cloth. It looks they are learning on burlap. So I'm not sure. I'm going to have to see as I go further, but I just read through the whole thing quickly last night. They were being taught on burlap. But then it looks like in the photos they're using monk's cloth and drawing directly onto it. And Carol says monk's cloth. The book is like taking a class with Mary Ann. It's not just the story of the ladies. That's true. There's so much teaching information in here, and it's so particular. But in my mind, it feels like it runs parallel to the kind of teaching that I've seen in the past, and I'll show you why. Their sort of plan and their thought process that they put up as a board as like a how-to in what order is very different than I think we would if we were approaching hooking, because we have a transfer medium, we have more tools and more choices for supplies. So it's going to run parallel, but it's still going to be the same basic principles. So I just want to look at this introduction real fast because this is just so beautiful, written by Marianne Wise of Wisconsin in 2017. I'm reading right from the introduction. I'm going to do a couple of paragraphs. It's many pages, the introduction, and all of the information, even before the book starts. This book is filled with information and inspiration. So she says, before our students embarked on their journey to the town of Panayachal, I'm probably pronouncing everything wrong, for our first hooking design class, some of the women, I'd been told, had to wake up at 3:30 a.m. They hurried through their morning chores, and made a morning meal, leaving food on the wood-fueled cook stove to be reheated at daybreak, wrapped themselves up in cargadores, which are, I guess, large shawls, for protection against the cold February Highland air. So off they go, right? These families, their families asleep behind them, they stepped onto footpaths leading to the main road, paths illuminated by memory because street lights don't exist in these neighborhoods, reaching the highway where they would await dawn and a bus that was bound in the direction of Panayachel. Finally, 4 hours later, several transfers later, they arrived on time in class. So just the amount of will and effort it took for these ladies to get from point A to point B is remarkable when I think of how hard, I mean, we're homeschooling now, but how hard it was in the past to get my two kids out of bed in the warm car, which I'd already heated up, and 2 minutes away to school. I mean, this is epic. This is like the Odyssey, like the Odyssey. Hello, Monique. Good to see you. Hello in England. We're talking about Rug Money, the Guatemalan women doing the most beautiful rugs out of t-shirt material. So entering the sala, which is the classroom, by twos and threes and accompanied by their either friends or people from the village, they carried heavy bundles, some of them balancing them on their heads, right? all wrapped up in their colorful woven cloths and stuff, and some of them bringing a baby or a toddler with them because of necessity. And they are just presenting themselves, hoping for the best, right? Reaching out for an opportunity and hoping for the best. This just shows the best sort of faith, taking a leap of faith to try something new to change your life. It takes a lot of energy, thought, confidence to do this kind of thing. I just can't believe that these women made it to this sort of setting to even begin learning. So they had they have their little coffees and things, and then they have a little bit to eat, and then they get down to work. And this is where it becomes real interesting, because Marianne says she checks and rechecks her syllabus, and she's excited to jump into the lesson plan because this is her second class, and this is more of a design class than the first class that she did there, which was just technical. So some of the same faces, she says, but not completely. And her friend Jody Slocum is here to help out. And they sit down with these ladies and they sort of take stock of what the plan is and what they mean to do. And immediately they have to um, change the plan. And so, of the people who are here, there are 29 women and one man named Diego. It's a 2-day workshop. And the idea is that they will work for, I think it's 3 days, have the weekend off to work on their thing, and then have 2 days later for feedback and seeing how it went. Now, it seems, oh, Deb, there's another person called Deb. I might be crossing the workshops. I'm probably crossing the workshops, but all in Guatemala. So they realized that their time is short, that the time that they have with these women is short. And you can't go through the whole, everything that you would like to ideally teach about rug hooking. So they kind of just jumped the how to and all of the sort of niceties and just went straight to technique. This is how you do it, baby. This is how you do it. So everybody, more or less, is just going to begin hooking. And they beautiful photos throughout this book. This is the design that Marianne gave to this class of women. It's like a bird on burlap, and you can see there's going to be more women in this class, but you can see this group of women that they hooked their birds each very differently, very differently. And I can't help but look at this one. Let's see if I can get that in focus. She got really far. And do you see the kinds of colors that she is just naturally and instinctively filling into the background? I mean, look at the way that these ladies are dressed. They are not afraid of color. And she just immediately does the bird and then starts filling in the background with these kinds of shelves of color, bright, bright, bright color. Um, I mean, I just think it's extraordinary. So those ladies were doing sort of the technique thing. Oh, here they are sitting at the table. It looks like they're starting out with the bird in this photo. There's such beautiful photos, and when you look through the book and you read about all the different ladies and girls who are here, you get to sort of recognize them in the photos, and that's part of the nice thing. It's not like endless. It's not infinite. It's like a finite group of women. So it's really, it's nice to kind of look at them in different pictures and see them. They're such pretty girls, and they do such beautiful work, and it's kind of, it's like such a happy ending type story because they will, in the end, spoiler alert, start bringing stuff to market and like almost selling out every time. So this is really good feedback that at like these international type markets, they start having stalls and selling the rugs, and they're selling them like crazy. And it's going to be a life changer, like a honest to God life changer. Saving money for their kids, putting food on the table, catching up with bills, saving money for the future, so they're not a burden to their kids. You know, their lives will be changed. All of these women with this project. So, and you know, it's so. I'm reading about some of the different girls, and one of the girls said she confided after she took the class that when she left, her husband said to her, unfortunately, you know, you've wasted your time. Why are you doing this? Nobody wants to buy anything out of recycled clothing. So, you know, it made her obviously feel terrible. But at the end of the day, she sold like all of her rugs and made tons of money. So I hope that he was a bit repentant for that sentiment. But it's just the way it goes sometimes. In other words, these girls are not getting necessarily a ton of support and positive feedback. So the positive feedback they get is when someone buys a rug and they see money from it and they see the result of their hard work. And that is, again, life changing. I'll remind you when we touch base. Tomorrow is our Zoom call, but on Thursday when we touch base, I'll remind you we're going to return to rug money. We'll look at our other books next week. The week just goes by too fast. But there is a website for them, and I'll put it into the thread when I get this one caught up again. I'll have to put all the info I had in the last one. So when they approach these classes, they look at the curriculum plan, which involves, number one, drawing designs and enlarging them to scale. So that's going to be a thing, right? Transferring the design onto your ground cloth. That's going to be a thing too. Discussing color. These are things they would do together. Discussing color in relation to not everybody has an education at all, like at all. So talking about what colors do, what complementary colors are, what colors support each other, pop each other, match each other, that kind of thing. And then later, after you get some headway, troubleshooting and saying, okay, too many holidays, or alternately, too packed, too tight, too packed, working on technique stuff. So, and then throughout the overarching idea, trying to infuse each person's sort of aesthetic for being creative, for sort of representing where they're from and themselves, infusing their work with themselves and what's around them to give it proper personality and character. So it's going to be different from girl to girl. No two rugs are the same. They don't work off patterns that way. So they do when they learn, but when they're actually making rugs for sale, each one is unique and different. So one of the interesting things that came out of reading the early pages of this book for me was that Marianne described this really sort of sad moment. Let me just show you this girl working. I think that's Rosalind. I have to check. And you see what she's doing there? You see the black and white, like sort of stripies she's got going on the caterpillar's body? The reason I wore this shirt today is because I wanted to show you that when you want that kind of effect, you cut up a shirt that looks like this, black and white stripe, and you get those kind of stripies. I mean, isn't that gorgeous? It really gives you like that sort of ethnic punch, this sort of color changing, very graphic, bold color changing. I know it can be so tough, right? Such important work. You've been twice to Guatemala, Martha. I'm not surprised to build houses. That's right. You did say that in the highlands, and the poverty is beyond belief. You know, I'm not going to be political because I try not to do that on this show, but you cannot begrudge people trying to put food on the table for their kids and have a better life. Being able to sell rugs at a fair market price, and they're still very much on the low side. Selling a few rugs for them is going to pay their bills. I mean, the amount of money that we spend for one of these beautiful things that they've spent 100 or more hours on is going to pay tons of their bills and change their quality of life. And it's not like you get nothing for it. You get something beautiful in return. So these kinds of stories are just over the top beautiful. But this one woman, Marianne said, this woman called Carmen, when they sat down to do the drawing, when they were first going to draw their own designs in this design class that I was describing with women waking up at 3:30 in the morning and making their way, Carmen is one of these women. Now, she had taken the first class that was more technical, and she did really great with the learning how to hook. This class was more of a design class. So Carmen sits down, and she says, Marianne says, now I want you to draw this or that on. And Carmen didn't do anything. And Marianne realized that Carmen probably hadn't held a pencil. And she was completely defeated, Carmen, completely defeated. Like she was ready to get, after the effort of getting there, she was ready to accept failure because apparently this poor lady had tried a few other handcrafts and had failed, in her own opinion, failed. So she was just ready to suck it up and fail again. And she just kind of sat back, and Marianne writes about how her body language, she just put her hands under the table and just didn't make eye contact, just checked out. And Marianne realized this is kind of sad, super sad. So they realized, and Deborah was teaching as well. Deborah's the friend who's like support teaching. They realized that, Carmen had never made a mark on a paper because she had the kind of a life that there was never a moment where she needed to put a mark on a paper. She was busy doing other stuff. She didn't sit down and write letters. She didn't go to school and learn how to write. She'd never had a use for having a pencil in her hand to put anything down. Her body was just working all the time up until this moment. So it was overwhelming for her to think about putting a mark on a paper. This is just one of the million stories in this book. So Marianne, thinking on her feet really fast, said, sorry, I forgot a really important step. And she had everybody put their pencils down and said, do you see, I'm paraphrasing, of course, do you see anything around us that would make a good pattern? Anything that would artistic looking that would make a good pattern. And some of the girls were real shy and said like, oh, the brick wall or the floor has a pattern. And of course, Carmen didn't say anything. And so Marianne found a bunch of bananas that were on the sideboard, and she put them down, and she said, now everybody pick up your pencil and try to draw the shape of the bananas. And everybody drew the shape of the bananas. And then she said, now take your paper, crumple it up, and throw it away. Didn't even look at the bananas, just made the point they don't have to be perfect. And she said, they don't have to be perfect. It's just the idea, right? So in other words, in the meantime, Carmen picked up a pencil and she drew the bananas, right? So now the seal is broken and she has done the thing. And she, at this point, she will start drawing and working on other stuff. But she needed the right teacher to be there to walk her through this because she was completely overwhelmed and defeated. And it's just an awful, awful place to start. But I thought it was a beautiful story of getting through in the end. We'll talk a lot more about Carmen. I'm going to go for about another 5 minutes because of my stupidity. So one of the problems that they will have in these classes is transferring. Now, these ladies aren't, Marianne's not there with the other teachers all the time. So they have to leave these women with the possibility, with the knowledge and the means to continue making rugs to sell. So there's going to be a supply problem with the tools that we would use in the U.S. or in other parts of the world. Transfer medium is going to be a thing, right? It's going to be a problem. So she quickly decides again, why don't we just remove that step? Doing the whole transfer thing, let's just not do that. We're just gonna freehand because their designs are very shape driven anyway. Let's just freehand right on the backing. You draw a picture of bananas or something, your own design, and then we're not going to enlarge it. We're not going to look for a machine to enlarge it. She eliminated the idea of using like rulers. You know how in school you would draw the square and then you would enlarge it much bigger by drawing a bigger grid. Most of these women had never touched a ruler. So that's it. The learning curve is just going to be too frustrating for a lot of people. So she said, you know what, let's just draw sketches and then in our minds do the enlarging and draw them larger on our backing and surround them with shapes and busyness and other motifs. And we're just going to work that way. Decision made, we're going to work that way. So it sounded like it went really well. In 2007, she says, I reminisced with Carmen about our first design class. This was the day of the bananas. Reminding her that she didn't pick up her pencil and she was afraid to draw. And I asked her how she overcame her fear. And she grew very serious and replied, I knew I could rug hook because I participated in the first class, but the second class was different. We were going to make our own designs, and I was afraid to even hope that I could do it. It was thanks to God that I could do it because I prayed for him to take away my shyness and to give me more confidence. I think that is just, gorgeous. I have lots of pictures to show you of Carmen too, but she got what she asked for. She got the confidence to do this, and she turned out to be the class clown. Later in the book, you can see she's just laughing in every picture, and she's the class clown. So, Teddy's calling me. This book is just filled with sort of tearjerker type stories, stories about the women. Like this woman is Ramona, and she's one of the hookers. I'm going to catch up on the thread too. I can see there's good stuff coming up. So, having learned about the rug hooking opportunity, Ramona, I'm paraphrasing, entered the program. She had no prior hooking experience, and she said, I was surprised to see the rugs. I'd never seen anything like them before. I enjoyed learning how to make them, and within 2 years, she's like a artist, right? Her proper artistry emerged in her rug designs, very different, right? In her own right, very different. And now she's really well admired by her friends and the other hookers. And she was interviewed, I guess, by Marianne for the book, and Marianne asked, did you have this artistry inside of you all the time, Were you aware of these talents? And she said, no, no one ever commented on my work, except once in a while my husband said I did good embroidery. My friends never said anything about my work. Her friends never admired her work. She's lucky her husband said something about her work, because otherwise there would have been not one person in her life that said, you're doing good. So she had never heard this before, and she says now she feels very good. In rug hooking, she's discovered a talent that she didn't know she had, and now she feels like an artist. And other people do remark on her work, and she sells her work. So here she is working on one of her beautiful pieces. I'll show one of her finished pieces. But this is the story of all of these. Some of the girls are quite young. She's 39 years old, Ramona, and she does absolutely beautiful work. Here's another picture of her. And I'm not going to go through every lady because I want you to get this book if you're interested in this subject. I mean, you can see what she's doing is really, it's just over the top, right? It's just over the top. It does have that sort of mola embroidery, sort of Hawaiian applique style feel to it. But all of the stories, it says, with the income from her rug sales, Ramona contributes to the household expenses. She's saving money for her son's education. They bought a refrigerator. She says not on credit, because on credit you get really, I'm trying to think of a word that's not bad, you don't get a good deal. So she doesn't buy stuff on credit. She bought the fridge just with her money. She said her life is improved. Her husband and her made an agreement that for the most part they'll save her money for the future. If there's, you never know when your fortune's going to change. And if his money can't pay the bills, then they kick her money in, but otherwise it's their savings. So seriously, so life-changing. Stuff like this. I mean, it's just crazy the work that she does. And again, t-shirts. This is all t-shirts. Oh, it's very humbling. It's inspiration and humbling. I'm trying not to cry because it's just, I mean, it's happy stories. It's the kind of happy stories that make you want to cry because there's such great work. I'm going to stop in a minute and I'm going to put the link for this book up and I'm going to put the link for Zoom up. So look at this video in a minute. This is one of Carmen's pieces. Her being so shy and not a designer, this is one of my favorite pieces in this book. This bird, and Carmen did that. So it turns out she's a designer. I'm not gonna push the point too far, but you're a designer too, right? You're a designer too. You just have to get there. This is another one of Carmen's beauties. This is when we did that Edward Sands Frost class. I have to do another one of these designing with stencils thing. Sometimes you just need a little help with like a main motif, and then you get going on your own designs and you do unlock something that you didn't know that you have. And then you just buy commercial patterns when you really fall in love with them. But it's so nice to have the confidence to do your own designing, and that's a big part of this story. So let me pause there. I'm going to return to this book. It's a really, it's just a great book. You really feel like you're there. So I want to say a lot more about some of the things that are going on in this book and some of the other designs and some of the other. Let me just show you this real quick. This is Carmen. And Carmen is 53 years old. And this is one of her beautiful rugs. Now, one of the things, and then Carmen teaches. So Carmen teaches. She also travels. She goes to different shows in different places. Her life has changed. Her life has really changed. She's 53. There was some other stuff about her. Really sad. I don't know why I did. Oh, yeah. Reflecting back on her life, Carmen matter-of-factly describes how her mother died of alcoholism when she was 9 years old. A few years before her mother died, Carmen had to quit school in the first grade. Her brother and father looked to her to take care of the house, but she didn't know how to do the work. The extended family sent an older cousin to teach her how to cook and clean. She doesn't recall where the food came from. She married young and had 3 children. While her children were still young, her husband wandered off, and soon after it was found that he also died of alcoholism. She has 1 son who lives with her. I mean, life is hard. So for her, to look like this and to be traveling to rug shows and selling her, proper artwork is just unbelievable. It's just unbelievable. So let's definitely talk more about this on Thursday. There's so much more I want to show you and tell you about how the work evolved and some of the other rugs and some of the other women. But let's do that on Thursday. So as soon as I end this thread, I'm going to put up the Zoom information for tomorrow. Let me see. I missed some of the. I know some of you know a lot of this. Hi, Joan from Jamaica. Joan from Jamaica is on too, and also Joan Woldiva is on. Lots of Scottish tartan wool scraps to use up. Yep, you can definitely use your plaid for anything. That is great. Maybe put it in the wash first to make it a little bit fuller. Anne's shop with other artists in Stockholm, Wisconsin. I would say road trip. That's a little far for a road trip. That might be an airplane trip, but I would love to go. I would love to go. Oh, Robin, you're right there. You've got to go. Beautiful place, Guatemala. Yep. We have so much more to say on this subject, and I'll put a link to their direct shop so you can shop with them too. They make pillows and handbags and stuff too. Absolutely. And Honey Beehive sells their patterns. So if you don't want a made rug, if you want one of the rugs from these Maya women of Guatemala, Honey Beehive sells the patterns. So that's great too. I'm assuming that the money goes back to them because it's their patterns, but that's another great way to support them. So beautiful. So I will put the link to the book. The bird is beautiful. Yeah, that's kind of Carmen's thing as she does her birds. So interesting. So I'm going to put up the link to the book. I'm going to put up the link to the Zoom for tomorrow. There's a very good chance I won't do a cocktail night this week. I'm so sorry, but I'm really thinking about taking a road trip for, I was going to go away for my birthday and it just didn't work out with the amount of work I had. But I'm catching up on orders and I might take off this weekend with it being sunny and kind of needing a break. So we'll see how that goes. But I will be on Zoom tomorrow, and I will be back for more Rug Money Book on Thursday. I'll put those links up now. Email me if you have any questions. Otherwise, I'm just working on orders this afternoon, getting stuff done. So I'm thinking about also putting out some T-shirt designs, T-shirt kits, T-shirt things like that. And as a side note, I found somebody, also South America, that has like these beautiful punch needles that are not super expensive that I've been testing and they work great. So I'm looking at putting out some punch kits too for beginners at a really good price that includes a proper punch needle. So all of those things are coming for those of you that are starting. The beginners class is also announced of the duck design, the carbuncle. That's coming up too. But I'm going to put out in the next couple of weeks a bunch of classes on design, getting you going, beginner rug hooking, beginner punching, possibly hooking with T-shirts, different things. So be looking for all kinds of different things. With spring coming, I really want us to get going with some new passions and projects. I will see you tomorrow for Zoom. Look out for those links. And in the meantime, have a great day. It was nice seeing you all. I'm going to stay on for a minute to catch up with the link. I'll see you tomorrow at Zoom.